Guys, so this video is going to go in two steps, in two approaches. So the first scenario will be that I have all my textures, all my images that I want to texture them in Cinema 4D. That's going to be the first scenario. So I'm going to be doing this in two parts, and that is the first part. And the second part will be that I don't have this image. I don't want to texture them here. I want to texture them in Photoshop so that I'll be able to change. So the difference between them, these two approaches, is just that once you texture from Cinema 4D and you want to change any image, you have to come back and retexture, and that's just it. But for Photoshop, which is the second scenario, all you just need to do is just change your image in Photoshop. So I'm going to be teaching you those two approaches, and the first one I'm going to use them for the other screens in the environment, while I'm going to use the second approach for Photoshop for the hero image. So let's just get into this. So what I'm going to do is, if you look at this, these are the screens, and you notice that these screens takes up everything, including the hero image. So before I start doing that approach, I need to break up these screens into two. I want to have a separate one for the other screens, and we'll have a separate cloner for this hero image. And if I go to the cloner and go to the vector, you notice this plane, which is here. This is the plane affecting this screen coming up, because if I go outside my camera, you notice that the screen moves up a little bit, and it's because of that planar effector. So I'm going to highlight both, Alt or Option G to put this in a group, and I'll name this setup 1. All right, so for this setup 1, I want to turn off everything but I want to turn off this main screen and leave every other screen. All right, so let me duplicate this for setup 2. Okay, I can delete this, do that later. So I'm going to name this plane position, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this plane and use that plane to just change the visibility of this screen. So if I hold down Alt Command and drag this to duplicate that, and I'll call this on/off, which could also be visibility. So we'll use that to do that. So if I go to my cloner object in my vector, I'll bring the plane on and off into this, and notice once I do that, it deflects this image even more. And the reason is because this is making use of the same value we had before. You can see the same value we had before for the first one, because I'm duplicating this. But for this other one, what I want is, I don't want it to deflect the value, so I'm going to turn off position. What I want is visibility. So for me to do the visibility, it is the scale that I'm going to use. I'll just change this from 0.07 to -1. Once I do that, it's going to change the visibility. So it's meant to turn this off. But the reason why it's looking like it's scaling down is because if you look at the fall off, the sphere is not really in the position. You notice this object is here, the screen is here, and the sphere is not really touching it. But if I want to do that, I can go back to my cloner object and change the positioning of this guy. So if I bring this guy up, that means it's going to calculate for the visibility first before calculating for the position, and that will have solved that problem. You notice we have that, and this is done. So we'll now duplicate this and call this setup 2. So all I just need for the setup 2 is just to invert this guy. So if I come to the plane object for the setup 2 and go to the fall off, and I will just invert that, and that would have inverted that. So if you come here and turn this off, you notice this is what I have. So I had this going to be my screen 2, setup 2. I'll just call this hero screen, and this setup 1 is going to be for other screens. All right, so this is just the setup. Now we can now start texturing this. So let's start with texturing the other screens, which is here. So for us to do this, the approach we're going to use is we're going to be making use of a shader in Redshift. So if I go to the create and go to Redshift, I'll add the Redshift material, and that material, there is a shader that we're going to use to kick off all this whole stuff. Okay, So once the material loads, we are going to go into the material, open the material. Then what we want to do is we want to bring a particular shader, and the shader is called multi-shader. So if I bring up multi-shader, and the way multi-shader works is just more like the variation in Cinema 4D texturing. So you remember variation shader that just allows you to take different textures and apply it to a cloner object. It's actually best used for a MoGraph cloner object. So right now, we need to look at how many shaders we need to slot into this. So if I go out of my camera, and that will tell me how many screens I'm looking at. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The 6, 9, 10, 11. So we need to make sure we have 11 screens. So we have 1, 2, 3. So we need to start adding this. So if we make this 11, I can actually go beyond 11. So it's just that the more I start adding this, we start adding them all to it. So once we have this, the next thing is we need to add our texture. So you notice we have 10 slots. So let's add one more. I'm making it 11. So we can add for each of them, or we can just add from a folder. So we can add our textures, but the way I'm going to go about it is adding a folder. So all I need to do is just put in my textures in the folder, and then it's going to add all the textures. Just look at any texture you can find in the folder and add them into it. So that's just what is going to happen. So if I click on this and go into where I want to add this texture, I know it's in my hard disk, and in my hard disk drive, I have my YouTube, and I have my images, and I have my MoGraph texture. I have all the images here. So if I click on OK, it's going to add all these textures here. You can see what we have. All the textures have been added here. So if I feel that these ones, we can just turn off those ones that are not showing. So I'll just remove till we have all the images. Okay, so I think let me just clear again, add all of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So let's go and add our folder. Still have that folder. Then it's going to load all these folders here. So you can see all the slots we have, but not to worry. We can decide to disable them. Let's just remove this, remove that, till we're back at that other one. So I need to remove one more texture. So you notice we have all these textures that will be added into the screen. So what I need to do is just drag this guy into my diffusion and also into my emission so that it can emit. So just drag. So it's trying to calculate the whole thing. That's why it's taking this long time. I just wait for it to finish calculation, and then we can also add that into the emission. So once that is done, we need to also add it into our MoGraph object. It's very important, and that's what will allow it show in this screen. All right. Okay, so we are here. It has been added. So all I need to do is just bring this texture, which is here, and I'll put it in my cloner. Just drag this to my cloner object, and that will be added. But now the issue here now is if I go into my screen and try to view what I have done. So let me just quickly change my render setting to a very smaller resolution just for speed purpose. So if I do this, look at what it's going to give us. So it's going to show us if I hit this render button, it's going to show us just one texture. And the reason why it's going to be showing the texture is because I need to change some things. You can see it's only showing me the first texture in the image. And what I need to do now is just to change the setting that will allow it to show all the other textures, and that is in the index. So I'll just change this index, this source from index to MoGraph ID. So you can see, you can also add it to particle ID, geometry object ID. So once I add it to my MoGraph ID, and that will refresh, and all the images will be here. All right. So once I'm done with this, I just need to just save this out as an image file, and then that is it. So I'm going to stop this. Then I'm going to render this out, fine. But then let's set up the main screen. So for us to set up the main screen, we're going to be using another approach, and that approach I'll be using is just object buffer, and I actually don't need the Redshift object to do that. I just need a normal Cinema 4D standard renderer. So what I'll do is I'll just make sure this is going to be my render settings, other screens, and then I'm going to create a new one, and this one is going to be standard. That's just what I want, and I can just take this to best and make sure they have the same resolution. So I'll make this 1920. So I'll go with the highest resolution and best. And then the next thing I'm going to do is make sure I have my multipass on. Then in my multipass, I want to add my object buffer. That's what I want. So what I want to link this object buffer one to is just the screen. So what I'll do is I will come to the setup, and I'm going to do something that is destructive. So before I do that, I'm going to control and drag this to have a duplicate and hide that duplicate for the main screen. So what I'll do is select this cloner. I'll hit C on my keyboard to make it editable. So it's going to show me all my screens. So you remember I should show other screens that are not relevant. You can see that this screen is not visible, so it's off. So I will look for that screen that I'm looking, that is the one that I want. So this is screen 4. So I'll delete every other screen. I don't need them because they are invisible. And I have my screen 4. So for the screen 4, I'm just going to right click, go to Cinema 4D tag, compositing, and go to my object buffer, enable the object buffer 1, and make sure the same number you have is what you have in this place. So once I have that done, I'll go into my output. Output is fine. For my save, I'm going to enable my multipass. Then I am going to make sure it is PSD, and then you also have an option to, so you see we have multi-layer and layer suffix. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to add in my save, I'm going to make it alpha channel, and I'll add a straight so that we just have a straight alpha channel. So it's only going to render out this object buffer and make this screen white, and that's just what we're going to have. All right, so we are going to be having 2 renders, one for the object buffer and one for this. Okay, so this is for the Redshift, and this one is for the main screen. So I'll just copy this, Ctrl C, come here, copy, and I'll call this hero screen. Then for the main screen, don't forget, for the other screen, don't forget I have to make sure they have the same resolution, 1920, 1080, this also 1920, 1080. That's just all. So what I'm going to do is I'll render this and also render this, and then I'll see you in Photoshop. All right, so let me just start the first render. Hi guys, so here we are. We have this image and the screen that I've created. Don't mind this. What I actually need out of this image is the image buffer, the object buffer, and that can be seen in the layer. And if you notice, we can go to the single pass and we have all these different. So this is what I actually need out of it, but it's already saved that out. And if you look at the setting that I had, I already chose a location and I chose PNG, and it's going to, because it's a multi-layer, it's taking out that layer out. All right, so that has already been saved to a location. If you can see, it has been saved to my image, my picture folder. So I'll just save the same one to the picture folder. I'll just save as, and I'll call this TIFF file, make it 16 bits, and go to that same picture folder. Then from there we can head on to setting this. So I'll just call this other screens. I can see the hero screen that I saved. So this is going to save that, and then we have to head on to Photoshop and continue working from there. All right, so here we are. So I'm going to first off drag my image screen and into Photoshop and have it opened. And once that is opened, I'll just drag the PNG image, and then we'll start working on it. Okay, so just wait for it to load up. Okay, so this is the image, and I'm going to just unlock that, and let's bring in the mask. So just put this into this section, and we just press enter to open that. So you notice what we have. This is what we get to have in this image, but don't worry, no worries, we will work on that in a moment. So let's just bring this to the top. So this will help us mask out what we need. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to first off create a rectangle to use in masking it. So I'll come into my shape tool, select a rectangular shape, and then I'm going to just click anywhere in the interface. It brings up the setting. And now I went ahead, you remember, okay, so I went ahead to check the settings of my, the size of the screen of my own phone that I use, and it's 8 centimeters, so I'll just put centimeters, and the height is 16.5 centimeters. Then I'll just add rounding to the edges, and for the rounding I'll just use 1 centimeter just to the edges, and I'll just click OK, and it's going to create this. And what I'm going to do is I don't want the edge to be in it, so I'll come to the edge, I'll click on this. I don't want the stroke rather, so I'll just uncheck my stroke so I don't have any stroke. So once I have this, maybe I'll also give it a different color so that we will not, since this is white, let's just give it another color. So this is red, that's fine. So now that I have this guy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this to a smart object. So I'll right click, but before I do that, let's just have a duplicate that can always come back. So I'm going to right click on this image and convert to smart object. So this becomes a smart object. That is the key to the screen that we're going to be doing. So if I bring the smart object, I can move it to the side, and let's just hit Ctrl T to transform that. Then I'll right click and I'll go to distort, and that is just what I want. If I click on the distort, I can bring down the opacity a little bit so that we can see through. Then I will bring up this distort and pick each of the points, the edge point, and start moving them around. So this will be here. So what I'm just following is the contour of the screen that I want to want my screen to be on top. So just come in. So another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to also put into consideration my edge. You can notice that this if I hold down Alt or Option to zoom in, You notice my edge also, I have to also put that in consideration. So the way I'm going to go about this is to make sure that this guy is a little bit wider, a little bit more than the screen itself. Okay, so you can see that this radius is actually too wide. So I'll have to go back, which is why it's really important to always have a duplicate. So I'm going to go out of this. I will delete it and then go back to this object. If I go back to this and select my rectangle tool and look for a way to change. So I think I have to just, okay, so we have this option to change. So if I come here, I can start moving this up even more. So instead of having that much of radius, I think this is fine, and we'll just go with that. Then I'll have a duplicate of this again. So we have this, and we'll do the same thing. Right click, convert to smart object, Ctrl T to then right click and go to distort, and we can bring the opacity down a little bit. So let's just move that. So I'll just continue with this. Even if it's too wide, we just continue with this because of time. So what I'm trying to do is just to place this guy on that screen. And you will be asking now, and with what I'm doing, you should by now know the approach to other screens. So if you don't want to use the Cinema 4D approach, rendering out from Cinema 4D approach, you can just create an object buffer for each of the screens and then do this approach for each of them here in Photoshop, and that's how you are going to have your screens. Okay, so I'm bringing this down all the way here, and so what I'm doing is I want to have a little bit of overlap just to be more than the screen, so that by the time I put in my images, they don't get into this screen and start having white screens. I just want them to get clipped off a little bit, and that is what I want. So I'll just leave this here. I'll press enter to finish up. Then I can also Ctrl T, and maybe this time I'll right click, and I can also warp. So warping, I can now start bringing this, but then let's just leave that. I want everything to be straight. And now we have this screen, and then this is where the magic now comes. We'll bring this hero image and bring this over into this place. So if I have many screens, what I'm just going to just duplicate this guy. I have a duplicate for each of the shape that I've created, all right? But since we only have one shape, there's no point for the duplicate. Just this one is enough. So what I will do is select this hero image, and I will go into the channel. Once I go into the channel, that is where I'm going to see all those channels that I have created. Okay, let's see if I get rid of this. Okay, so the image is meant to show me. Let me go into this. All right, so not there. This is where we are doing that. Sorry about that. We're not doing this here in this channel. In this, we have to go into the hero screen. So if I double click here, it takes me to the hero screen. And if I go into the channel of this hero screen, you notice we have all the RGB and we have the object buffer. So what we want is the object buffer. So I'll turn off the RGBs, turn on my object buffer, make sure I turn off everything except the object buffer. So this is what I have right now. So for this object buffer, we are going to select it. Okay, so for me to select this is really simple. Just hold down my control and click on this. It's going to select the whole screen. And now you notice this black spot is taking that out of my selection, but I can also include it in my selection, but that's no problem. So we'll go back here and create a layer, and that layer we want to include this in our selection, we can just use a basic selection, maybe lasso selection, and make sure we're in the add mode. We add that into the selection, and that includes that. So now we have this. Once we have this, I'm going to go to my color, hit my G on my keyboard, and which is using the paint bucket, and I just click here. It's going to paint over this, and that is one thing. Another thing I'm also going to do is to create a layer mask while I have this selection on. Once I create a layer mask, the selection will be on, then I can turn off every other thing, and this is what I have. Okay, so if I turn off this, I can go into this. So I can actually go back to the channel and make sure everything is on and turn them off. And for this, if I go to the channel, make sure everything is on except all this image, except these guys. So this is what I have. Okay, so this is what I have. So if I click cancel, it will tell me to save. I'll say yes, save that. Then it's going to save that image. It's going to save that and bring us back into this layer stack. Then that is what we're going to use to mask that. Okay, so you notice we have this and we have that. So if I hold down Alt, I can drag this into this. By clicking at the middle, you can see that it's going to mask that red into that screen. So what do I need to do? All I just need to do is go into my shape object, double click it. It's going to take me into the shape object. I can bring in my screen. So I have some screens to put into this place. So if I go into here and then go into my images, then I can look for an image to add as a screen, and that will be the image I'm going to have. So let's just assume I'm going to be adding this into it. So I'll drag this and let go here. This image will be added, and maybe let me just scale this out just a little bit and move this down because I want to have my. So once I have everything set, I will just close. Then it's going to ask me to save. I'll say yes, save that, and voila, that's going to be on this. Right now, why it's not visible enough is because remember we brought the opacity down. So let's take it back to 100, and that becomes our screen. So we can now from here start doing a little bit of color correction. So we can come here, add maybe a little bit of a level, start to work on this. If I bring this, you can do a little bit of brightening and all that. So just some basic image correction, and that will solve that. So let's say here I'm going to add a little bit of a contrast here, and you notice what we have without this and with it. And then you can just from here put your text, and then everything is fine. So what I would do as an extra step would be to start grouping things. So I'll just select this, put that in a folder, and I'll call this my color correct. Then this is going to be my hero setup. So I'll select this, put them also in a folder, and call this hero image. And maybe inside the hero image, this guy is what we're going to, since this is what we're going to be changing, so I'll just double click it and I'll say image here. Maybe it's going to be in capital letter. So whoever is using this will know that this is where they're putting their image. They don't have to do any other thing. Just come to this and double click and go and put in your image here. So if I feel that later I don't like this image, I want to change that, I can just double click, take me into the image, go for a particular image that I want to use, and that will be the image to use. So let's just say I'm going into this, and I feel like I want to use this Netflix, so I can just drag the Netflix image into this. Or let's just say I'm going to use my picture. I think this is where I can use my picture. I can bring in my picture here and drag that out. So I want to make sure it's not okay. That's fine. Press enter and then close this and then save. Yes, and so you can see that you can actually change this image at the fly. And so that's just how to do this. Like I said, I have in my Coursera course, I have a ton of screens that I've created, mockup that I've created. So you can just check that and follow up and see if you will get other things. But there are a lot of things I've taught in that course which I skipped here, so you can just go into that course and just watch. So if you feel this was helpful, do please give me a like and a thumbs up, because it helps me in YouTube algorithm. And if you are new to my channel, please do subscribe, because I do tutorials like this every time. Do have a wonderful day and God bless you.